I want to talk today about an experience that I had personally and a theme that I'm seeing in the collective that feel deeply related that I want to share both to turn what was a painful experience into a teachable moment and also bring what bit of understanding I can to the greater conversation of what I perceive happening right now. Um, so I'll start with the experience that I had, which I was in the path towards renting a space, subletting a room. I'm amongst many other things. Most of you are watching this probably know me as a poet. I'm also a massage therapist, and I was, as we're in the process of seeing about attempting to reopen in a pandemic and how to do that safely, but that's another conversation. I was going to be renting a space one day a week, and we were having a meeting of the practitioners who are all subletting or leasing rooms in that space, and I was the only person of color, as far as I could tell, in that group, and that in and of itself is challenging and a part of being in the healing arts industry that I would like to shift. But that was the experience, and the rest of the group had already been in the conversation about putting up a Black Lives Matter sign or in some way expressing solidarity. And that process had been interrupted, or they had decided not to do that because there was one person who didn't feel comfortable with that. And their rationale was that they didn't want to alienate their conservative clients from the suburb or have them feel unwelcome by, as they would say, like or catering to a particular group or being political. And that person's stance was that they wanted to remain neutral. And then we had the conversation with me present, and and a few other of the people named that while we do want to create a space that's as welcoming to people as possible, that there isn't really a neutral. And these are not my words originally, but I've been being with the understanding that when it comes to oppression, there is no neutral. You can be actively racist, passively racist, or actively anti-racist, or I would say transforming racism as we shift away from things only existing in opposition. That's the like not just anti-war but pro-healing, pro-regeneration. But as we dismantle, you can be actively in the process of transforming and dismantling those structures, or you're passively or actively contributing to them. And that person insisted that they wanted to remain neutral, and we had a long conversation about it and tried some different things like, well, maybe we create a value statement for the the building, the location, so that we're not just saying Black Lives Matter, but we're naming that all of these things are important to us. And eventually the person did agree that what they said was that they wanted to be democratic, and that if everyone else wanted to have a Black Lives Matter sign, they would go with that. And there was a lot of space given to me to be heard as the only, as far as I know, the only Black woman who was going to be renting space there, as well as to this person who didn't agree, and to hear her concerns, to hear about why she felt like it wouldn't be good for herself or for her clients to have that sign there. And so we left the conversation with the understanding that, she wanted to be neutral, but that she would be okay with the sign being put up. And then we would also, as a group, work on a value statement that we would put up at the clinic. Some time passed, and apparently there's some conversations I wasn't a part of. And then someone informed me that what had actually happened is that that person who claimed wanting to be neutral but would be willing to go along to the group actually went to the owner of the building and claimed that she had been railroaded by everyone. She didn't want that sign put up. And apparently they went to something that was kind of the effect of an all lives matter sign, but like all people are welcome here, as a way of trying to do that, and then decided not to have a sign at all. And that was when I was informed. And at that moment, I decided to no longer participate in that group. And I'm not renting space there anymore. And what I want to clarify is this is not about the sign. While I'm so grateful to be seeing Black Lives Matter all over Portland, and that the spell of repeating that has some power, because Black lives have not mattered since the inception of this country. And in fact, it is that lie that caused slavery. One of the things that caused slavery to exist and to be in the mess that we are now is because the collective lie is that some lives don't matter. Um, so I think shifting that spell by repeating Black Lives Matter and having it be that Black Lives Matter as well and as much as the lives of the descendants of Europeans and other people, that is useful and important and part of what needs to happen. The problem was not the sign. The sign is useful, but it can, it's only as meaningful as the action behind it. The problem was that rather than remaining in the discourse with the group and naming what was actually going on for her and finding a solution that would make both her and I and everyone feel respected and heard, she kind of passively went along with what everyone else in the group wanted. And then she went to the male socialized person in position of power, claimed injury that no one else knew she was experiencing so that she could get what she wanted. And that, as far as I understand it, is a pretty much textbook case of what we call white tears. When someone is not that they're feeling their experience, that's not the problem. We need to feel to heal. And being in touch with our actual emotional experience is an essential part of healing the trauma and moving through our conditioned responses and actually knowing what's going on inside of ourselves so we can be in our sovereignty, so we can be connected to our true spirits and our true souls. But when a feeling or a perception of hurt is twisted as a way of claiming power, that's when it's dangerous. So, for whatever reason, she didn't like what was happening. It was threatening to her that she would be somehow associated with the idea that Black Lives Matter. Whatever she's named it as not wanting to alienate her clients, but that's kind of an intangible, like, who knows what these imaginary people might or might not have wanted. It was about what she did or didn't want. And my perception is that she didn't want to be associated with the idea of Black Lives Matter because of what it say about her. And her way of navigating that to take power in the situation was to weaponize her feelings and weaponize the perception that she had of experiencing harm, and went to the male socialized person of power to get her way. And this is the same energy that got Emmett Till killed. It's the same energy that has people lose their jobs when the white person isn't hearing the person of color who is the service worker, or isn't getting exactly what they want in the way that they want it because their identity is so based on the illusion of superiority over this service worker person that they are insulting or not being kind to, that they then, can I speak to the manager, becomes that kind of rallying cry, and then people lose their jobs or people lose their lives. It's the white woman calling the police on the bird watcher in Central Park. It's different manifestations with different levels of impact and injury, but it's the same energy of harm. And on a national level, we're seeing a deeply traumatized person who was never held, is my opinion. I could be mistaken. I'm not a therapist. This is just what I'm perceiving. A person who inherited the trauma of being the descendant of colonizers and the descendant of capitalism, told that this is what you do to get love, this is what you do to get power, confronted with a group of people who are saying, you can't treat us like this anymore, and you specifically can't treat Black people like this anymore. This is not how we're going to move forward as a species and as a nation. And that's so activating 45's fight response, because his perception of reality is threatened. His idea of superiority that helps give him a place of identity So much of racism, as I understand it, is based on, like, what makes racism so entrenched is that it's based on the identity of someone not having an intrinsic connection to place because they're just descendants of colonizers or immigrants, not having a connection to place and tradition that's actually rooted in something secure and healthy and grounded of the moment, that their identity gets based on being better than someone else or worse than someone else. And there's some history and research around the beginning of whiteness and the idea of whiteness being better than blackness. This arose around the same time as the uprisings. I think I've mentioned this in a past video. And so that concept of I am somehow better than you, my identity is based on Black people being a certain a certain level, and white people being a certain level. And then when Black people say, no, we're equal too, and then other people are saying, yes, Black people are equal, Black lives matter, that is the cognitive dissonance of that is so intense. And so you have someone who is immature, but has a lot of power available, a lot of access to violent power, with hurt feelings because we're saying, no, you can't do this to us, sending his bullies to maim and injure and harass and kill people so that he can have some illusion of being more comfortable because his worldview is no longer threatened. And the media and so many other people whose interests are caught up in maintaining what slavery and the legacy of slavery have wrought, that they're not able to look at their own sadness, their own grief, their own anger, their own discomfort, their own lack of connection to an authentic identity, and to grieve what needs to be grieved so that they can actually develop a healthy relationship with place in their own souls and their own intrinsic wholeness, that they'll fight tooth and nail to maintain the illusion of power that's all they know of their identity. And you get people getting killed. You get not that I think what I'm experiencing is at all the degree of awfulness of what has been and continues to happen to Black people in all different corners of the world. And I'm not saying this to say, like, look how awful it is that the situation happened to me. I'm moving on. I have moved on. I'm going to be okay. I have resources of love and care in my world to help me recover from that. It's not about hierarchy. I don't want to say that what happened to me is as important as any of those situations, but what I'm speaking to is the same quality of energy, the same quality of fragility. And that's one of the things that we mean when we say white fragility kills people, or causes people to be unsafe. And so just as I couldn't continue to rent space at that location, and I certainly couldn't justify within myself bringing my Black and brown clients to that space where I knew that quality of energy and weaponized fragility was present in the space, so too do I feel it important that each of us in our own way continue to look at how am I being complicit in the structures that create oppression on the micro and the macro scale. How am I contributing to oppression? How am I being a cop in this situation? How am I not choosing growth? And how can I instead lean into my own discomfort about my identity and being unsettled and evaluate who I actually am and what my relationship to people who are different from me is and my relationship to life? And can I be a little bit braver? Can I let myself be a little bit more uncomfortable so that I can listen and strive to understand and actually reach towards equity and harmony and reciprocity and togetherness? And what does that look like to show up for the conversations where I might not get exactly what I want, but we all get to grow and reach towards each other? Thank you. This is Naima Lightseed, your medicinal poet. Thank you so much for watching.